Welcome friends to another r/prorevenge video. So I was looking at my channel statistics and it turns out that only one of you guys aren't subscribed. So make sure you're not that one person and hit the subscribe button. Our first story of the day is by Luther Williams. Act like a jerk, get fired. I used to sell cars, and when I sold cars, we had a list of banks we had partnerships with. We had a number of small credit unions we did business with quite a lot. Well, this story goes back to a little bit before this incident. Ford had just announced their new Shelby GT500. Now at my dealership, we would never sell a car for above MSRP, even a Shelby GT500. Now, we were only getting 2 Shelby GT500s. Our GM would pick which one of our customers would be able to buy them. We generally based it on how much business they did with us. Well, a loan officer at a local credit union came back and tried to make his case for why he should get one. He really wanted it. I told him I'd put him in for it, and if he gets selected to be able to buy one, I'll let him know. The thing is, who gets the Shelby GT500 is 100% up to the GM and not me. Well, my GM didn't pick him. Honestly, that year, we had a number of well-qualified buyers who wanted them, and thinking back on it, I think this loan officer might have had a hard time affording it regardless. Well, the loan officer stops by my dealership because he saw both Shelby GT500s in our showroom and asks me if he can buy one of them. I said, unfortunately not, we already have buyers lined up for them. He looks at me and goes, "You didn't select me?" I go, "My GM decided on some other customers. I'm sorry, maybe next year?" I really want to stress to the community here, Ford is really selective on how many of those cars they build. We refuse to charge over MSRP, so we use cars like that as basically gifts to really good customers. We also had a lot of really good customers. He laughs, shakes his head and goes, "I'm never going to approve any one of your deals ever again." I'm like, okay. I wasn't particularly concerned over this threat because, well, I had a lot of banks to go to, and if I piss off one loan officer, especially over something like this, I don't care. I wish him well and he leaves. Sure enough, this loan officer begins declining every deal that comes across his desk with my name on it. After about 10 to 15 deals or so, I just stopped submitting loan applications to him, and a full 6 months go by. Then one day, an older man comes in on a truck. He has great credit, like 800 plus FICO. His mortgage, which was really reasonable, was literally about 2 years from being paid off. He was putting half down. Like, there was no question that this man was a well-qualified buyer. But he had one condition. He wanted to finance with that small credit union. He told me that he's been banking with them for many years. He likes them, he doesn't want a new account. I said, great, not a problem. In the back of my head, I'm thinking, this loan officer has got to be over this grudge by now. So I fire over the finance application to the credit union, and I explain that the customer wants to finance with them. A few minutes later, I get a response from that loan officer, and he made the fatal error of saying in an email, "I told you I'm not going to approve another loan from you. This one is declined." And I thought, oh wow. I think, let's see if the customer's willing to look at another bank before I fight this battle with this credit union, and obviously that doesn't happen. So I decide to go to my GM and I explain the situation. My GM looks at the customer's credit and agrees this should be an easy approval at a prime rate, 0 questions. I then show him the email and I go, "The loan officer at the CU refuses to approve the deal because I'm the one selling the truck." And my GM goes, "You've got to be freaking joking." And he rereads the email and he goes, "Wow, 1 second." My GM calls up the CU's president and explains the situation. The CU president asks for us to send the application directly to him. A few minutes later, we get a call back. Deal is approved, they can email over the contract, customer can sign, and they'll wire us the money. I think, sweet, the deal's done. The next day, I get called into my GM's office and my GM goes, "OP, the CU president wants to know, how many good deals did this loan officer deny you?" I explained somewhere in the ballpark of 10 to 15 before I just gave up on sending loan applications. Then I get asked if I can go through those 10 to 15 deals and find the ones that had really good credit that were denied and send them to the president. I say sure, so that afternoon, I dig through the deals. I found 11 good deals that were denied. They were all 700 plus FICOs. They all got approved by other banks at good rates. So I put all 11 deals together, attached the approval letters from the respective banks, and sent them over. 2 weeks later, a new guy who I never met walks into our dealership and introduces himself to me. He's the new loan officer at the small local credit union. He tells me that he's eager to work with me and that he'll promise to make the approval, contract, funding process super easy, and that they have great rates and the whole spiel. I ask, what happened to the old guy? And he goes, oh, he was let go and I took his place. I smile and go, know what for? He shakes his head and he says, no idea why they let him go. I say, fair enough. If you were involved in this and you got the word back from the GM, where the president of this credit union wants to know how many good deals did they deny, would that be one of the most satisfying questions you've ever been asked? Because if I knew that this guy was targeting me, turned down 15 plus deals, and then I could finally just unload all of this incriminating evidence, oh, it would be bliss. Let me know if you'd feel the same way in the comments down below. And our final story of the day is by Audie Murphy, the time a tenant had my car towed. About a year before the whole pandemic thing, I lost my government job. I'm an audiologist, and so I had little doubt I would find work. But I also knew that my best bet for top earnings was to work for myself. So I secured my financing, sold a bunch of stocks and mutual funds that had done pretty well, and set about finding a property. My plan was to open a practice, but buy a building that had rentable space to help bring in an additional revenue stream. I eventually came upon this great little building in the heart of downtown with a nice big parking lot. The building was a former commercial garage. The giant bay doors where trucks used to come in and out of were replaced by these really nice walls full of windows that still open like garage doors, but formed a covered space in front of the units. This is relevant later. I knew the property just from being around town, and I thought they looked really cool. They're crisp and modern and, in my opinion, have a cool Scandinavian feel to them. Anyway, I love this building. As I roll up to take my first tour with the realtor and owner, I pull into the lot as instructed, and the second I step out of my car, I see a woman rushing out of the building towards me. I'm thinking, is this the owner? Someone who works for the owner? No, it's a woman with a face full of piercings loudly telling me I need to move my car now or it will be towed. I have a meeting here, I began. She would have none of it. Move it now or I call the police, she said. I was about to move my car when the realtor and the owner, on the other side of the lot, called over and began walking towards me. She immediately retreated before they got close enough for us to work all of this out. I clarified that I was okay to park there, and they confirmed it was fine. I asked who that was, and they told me she owns one of the shops in the unit. Just ignore her, the owner said. She thinks she runs the place. And realtor and owner shared a chuckle. I walk the property and we go over some things and life is good. I get in my car and leave pretty convinced that this is the place I need to buy. Because I also intended to house my practice there, I agreed to lease one of the units and start getting set up while all of the closing stuff that needed to happen could be completed. So for about 2 months, I was a tenant just like all of the other tenants. I never really got into the fact that I was buying the building because my interactions with my neighbors were polite but transactional. Well, mostly polite. The woman with all of the yelling, let's call her Megan, was none too pleased with my presence. She owned a store that sold custom-made, well, costumes, I suppose? Lots of steampunk outfits and period costumes that she makes herself. Impressive work though, honestly. I have to imagine she does most of her trade online since I seldom see people in her place. I was there not more than a week when she barged into my unit and began making sure I was aware that the parking lot was not for customers and was for them only, and I was only allotted one spot. I said thanks, but I have the parking all worked out with Gus, the owner. I appreciate your concern, and I showed her the door. The parking lot, which I was purchasing along with the building, has 60 spaces. There's 5 units. According to her, we're each allowed 1 parking space and no customers or visitors are permitted to park there at all. So I know there are either shenanigans afoot or this woman is speaking out of her butt. Anyway, I ignore her. Time passes, I close on the building. Gus sends out a heartwarming thank you email to all the tenants, saying he appreciates their years of business together, but that the property's now owned by my company name, LLC, of which I am the owner. Pretty clear stuff. The very first thing I did was I did a reorg on the parking lot. Each unit gets 1 regular parking space, primo spots right next to the building. There are 2 15-minute loading spots back there as well. I designated the next 5 closest spaces to handicapped parking. The rest was just parking. My long-term plan is to put in one of those automated parking kiosks so people who are there to patronize the businesses can park for free, but anyone else will have to pay. But that's down the road. For now, I just needed to formalize some stuff and just accept that I may have some people parking there illegally, and if it becomes a problem, I'll just have to hit the security cameras to see who's abusing the system. Anyway, Megan is furious. She's furious that there's not enough handicap spots. There were none before. She's pissed that she needs more than 15 minutes for a loading zone. Who's timing it? She's pissed most of all, however, because she was never consulted. Flash forward a few days, and I parked on a non-parking spot. The sidewalk in front of my building is privately owned. Basically, you turn off the public sidewalk and walk down the private sidewalk to where all of the businesses are. I parked on a paved patch next to my unit on the far side away from the public sidewalk, accessible only by my parking lot. I parked there with every legal right to do so, by the way, because I was unloading equipment. Since I own the space I was parked on and everything around it, I didn't move my car right after. I walk outside and my car is gone. So I immediately assume someone stole my car. Then there's Megan standing in her doorway with a big poop-eating grin on her face. I ask her if she knows anything about my missing car. "Oh, was that your car? I saw a car parked illegally, so I had it towed." I said, "Laugh it up. Any expense is getting added to your rent." I went to the tow company that the prior owner hired, and I laid into him for towing anything from my property without authorization. His argument was that he had a contract with the property. He did not. He had a contract with the company that formerly owned the building that was now null. In the end, I knew arguing would get me nowhere, so I paid him and took my car. I left with hate in my heart and my mind solely focused on revenge. I began really scrutinizing my security tapes and discovered that all of these unaccounted for vehicles in the parking lot all had something in common: Megan. I had a suspicion that she was selling parking in my lot. So I waited by one of the cars until the guy arrived. I told him, as he walked from an area that was not my building, that he was not authorized to park there. He looked confused and told me to mind my own business and he pays for parking. I introduced myself as the owner of the lot and asked who he was paying and how much. The answer was Megan and $125 a month. Suddenly, her business made a lot more sense. I thought of confronting her. I thought of just straight up evicting her. Instead, I hired a security company. They set up a temporary booth at the entrance of the parking lot, and a guard ensured that everyone that was there for one of the businesses. If someone parked and wandered off somewhere else, they were told they were going to be towed. Anyone who claimed to be paying for parking would just be turned away. What followed was around 24 very angry people in Megan's store over the course of the week. They paid good money for those spots, and now she was pulling out the carpet? People were pissed. Megan lays pretty low for a while, then COVID strikes and we're all rightly in fear for our livelihood. As soon as it was legal, I told the tenants they could open the big garage door and have a covered outdoor space for their trade. This was a necessary thing to keep them open and was outside the scope of their lease since they were not allowed to put in outdoor seating, etc. Everyone's super happy about this, except Megan. Megan's unit is flaked by a coffee shop on one side and a little specialty bakery on the other, so you have to walk around an outdoor seating area to get into her store. It's the same situation for my unit, however, and it just isn't that big of a deal. Megan's fuming. She starts calling the police multiple times a day, every day, for supposed COVID violations on my part and the part of the other tenants. This was after, by the way, I said absolutely nothing about her being in her store and working even when non-essential businesses were supposed to be closed. The cops stopped coming after her third or fourth call. At this point, I had enough. Her lease was up last May, and so I non-renewed it. She threatened up and down that she was going to sue me, and when she was done, the whole building would be hers. I responded by suing her for the $125 a month she collected from all those people for parking. Best of all, she just didn't show up to court, so it resulted in a summary judgment in my favor. I don't expect I'll collect. Though she abandoned at least a few $1,000 worth of inventory and equipment when she left, so that will help. I mean, just by seemingly every metric, OP was more than kind. OP was kind of in the twiddling their thumbs about all this stuff territory on this one. There were plenty of moments where they could have shut the whole thing down way earlier on, but they just kind of accepted it, kept moving on, didn't want to rock the boat too much, I guess. Either way, I think we could all see that Megan was going to crash pretty darn hard. It was just a matter of time with the stuff that she was doing. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So of all these stories I've read today, which is your favorite and why? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you haven't yet, if you could like and subscribe, that would mean a lot to me. Whatever you do, whether it's liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, all of it helps grow this channel and I appreciate the heck out of it. So until next time, I'll see you all tomorrow with some more stories.